Hi, I'm Em, and this is Fang Farrier. Today, we'll be talking about money and money talk. It's not the employer who pays the wages. The employers only handle the money. It's the customer that pays the wages. That was said by Henry Ford. And today we're talking about money, and it brings that awkward conversation or that awkward topic to the surface of the unhappy marriage between healthcare and business, because we do need to talk money. And we might not like to call patients customers, but they're the ones that are paying us the money to do the service and to receive a service. And that's how the world goes round. Yet, money is almost a dirty word at dental school, unless it's related to the fees you're paying. And sales, well, that's kind of beyond some kind of dark world. Dark dentistry. But the reality is we have to deal with both almost immediately the moment we leave dental school. Unless you are in a salaried job or a government funded job, you are going to immediately have to talk about payment for services, from anything for a checkup to a crown to implants and complex treatment plans. And certainly I didn't feel prepared for this in any way whatsoever. And there are so many levels to kind of how money is talked about, how conversations about money are received. And I was listening to a podcast recently, and if you haven't listened to it, you should. It's a protrusive dental podcast. I can't remember the episode I was listening to, but they were talking about the emotions attached to money. And I thought, well, that's very, very true. And it came coinciding with a conversation I was having with a colleague about talking to patients about money and charges and fees for services. But these are really difficult conversations, particularly for a new graduate to have. And I say for a new graduate because you've just come out of dental school, you're still finding your way into the world of dentistry outside a teaching environment, finding out what works well for you, how working with different equipment and different materials than you've been used to is going to work for you. And you don't have the benefit of seeing what your work looks like 5 years later or the problems patients have encountered in that time, because you just haven't had the experience under your belt to do it, which makes it hard to back talking about costs for services and fees for services, because there's a certain element of doubt in your own mind as to what that service is worth at the moment. And even if it wasn't a doubt on your part, the game is so stacked from the other side in terms of emotional attachment to money and pre-existing thoughts about dentistry, dentists and money. The thought that, dentistry is overpriced. The thought that dentists are overpaid, the judgment you get on your car or your lifestyle or what you do in your free time, that you think you're just establishing a relationship with a patient, but they'll drop that comment about the car in the car park. And we might laugh it off, but that undertone is always there, that almost caricature of, the dentist just making it rain, that we get compared to a second-hand car salesman that's just trying to do you over. That's probably unfair to second-hand car salesmen, but again, another stereotype that people just kind of drop into. And it's generally stuff that patients don't want to be there for. They don't want to be in pain. They feel aggrieved that they're even in our surgeries to need this treatment. And it just makes the conversation about money all that harder. But it is And people don't like talking about dentistry as being sales, but it's a provision of a service for money, which is sales, whether you like the word or you don't like the word. At dental school, you're kind of led to believe that you were going to operate in this kind of utopian world of dentistry where you were the professional. The end of an examination, you would tell the patient what they needed and you would tell them why, and they would just come and get it done because that's the way it was, and that's the way our exams worked, in terms of this is what you need, this is the best treatment for you, and this is what it's going to be. But they didn't put in there, or this is what it's going to cost, or that you're dealing with people just like ourselves that have different priorities in their lives as to where that money gets spent. So it's not as easy as you need this and this is your only option, is that we have to be able to actually flex around the best option that will suit that patient. And that's not a judgment for us alone to make. That actually needs to be a proper two-way conversation with the patient. And if we can't talk about money or can't bring it up properly, that's a very difficult conversation to have. And if you get it wrong, it will be the quickest base of a complaint before you can blink, because you all are both misunderstood, not necessarily how the treatment's going, but what kind of commitment the patient wants to put to it and what they are willing to lose in a risk-based situation in terms of, no, they don't want to lose a tooth, but can they afford to pay for a failed root canal because the success rate's on 100%. And depending on the patient's finances and their knowledge of that, and that conversation, that consent in the first place, will really influence how the next conversation goes, if at the 5-year point or the 2-year point or even sooner they're facing complications and issues from that treatment because they turned out to be the small percentage of people that failure applied to. So it's, as I say, it annoys me that we don't talk about it, because it's an essential part of the communication we need to have. It's central to how we operate. And it's not a charity, unfortunately. It would be lovely if, we could just make people feel better, get paid for it, and it wasn't an issue on their part or ours, and life went on. And we can get closer to that, but I think we do need to do a bit of work on both understanding patients, but also understanding our own relationship with money, because money evokes different emotions in different people, and it can kind of go back to childhood. Not always. You may have had kind of money education, or not necessarily education, but the beliefs and the attitudes to those around you to money whilst you were growing up, or whilst you were starting out with first jobs and things like that, will greatly influence how you feel about money, and how you feel about money will influence how comfortable you feel talking to patients about money, because a lot of what you will bring will be your own biases and thoughts, and you will relate that to worth of your treatment. And yeah, it gets really complicated. Now, there's some people who've probably already switched off, if you were listening, that don't have any qualms or problems talking about money or value for service or anything along those lines. And that's great. And I've seen them and I've worked with them and I envy them. I don't have as straightforward a relationship with money. And I feel for patients that I don't feel can afford my treatment. But that I have to recognise that a lot of that is my baggage, because, how well do we know our patients? Who am I to judge someone as I get judged and you get judged as dentists on what we're wearing, how we carry ourselves, what we drive, what our job is, as to how much cash they have and where the priorities are in terms of where they want to spend that. Because you may have someone that's not got much money, but their teeth are their priority and they do want to spend that on that. on that. Whereas for you, you might be thinking, gosh, I'd be wanting to do this, that and the other with it. And it's hard to separate almost that kind of baggage from work and sales. I mean, the most common emotions around money are fear, shame, and anger. And we see that on the side of the patient in terms of the embarrassment of not being able to afford something, or the embarrassment of letting things get to a stage where they're going to cost an awful lot of money to fix. So we see that on their side, but it's on our side too. There are some financial psychologists, Bradley and Ted Klontz, who have done a lot of work around core beliefs about money and something they coin money scripts. And these are almost kind of stories we've been told about money that we believe and taken as part of our core belief, that they're typically unconscious. They developed in childhood and passed down from generation to generation within families and cultures. They're contextually bound and often only partial truths. So this is kind of how we're shaped with money. So there are 4 types of money scripts that they divide, and I'll just explain them to you briefly. So the first one is money avoidance. And this is the thought that money is bad, that rich people are greedy and unethical and don't deserve to have money, that earned money is virtuous and unearned money is immoral or wrong. And it kind of places money as a source of anxiety, fear, and evokes kind of disgust. The second type is money worship. So money leads to happiness and fulfillment, that you can never have enough money and that money is going to solve all problems. The downside of this, it tends to lead to workaholics, and compulsive spending kind of go hand in hand with it. The third type is money status, that net worth is related to self-worth and must and feel the need to show off wealth at all costs. So, keeping up with the Joneses and having the best car and having the best this, that and the other, and having visible signs of wealth. They reckon that this type of script often ties in with falling for get-rich-quick schemes and trying to come into quick finances. The fourth type is money vigilance. And these people tend to have finances in order and almost kind of like Ebenezer Scrooge, have saving at the expense of comforts. But you don't have to just fall into one of these categories. You can have 2 that are complementary, like money avoidance and money vigilance, and then you can have 2 that are completely opposing, like money worship and money vigilance. But it's not as straightforward as you might think. And I was thinking about this in terms of my upbringing and my relationship with money. And I probably fall into more kind of a money avoidance, money vigilance kind of person. But when I was thinking about kind of what dental school teachers and what we might have learnt from dental school, and I think it was the unsaid, it was that money avoidance, that to talk about money is bad, that here they talk about rich people are greedy and unethical, but it was almost that underlying thing of, because I studied in the UK, so I was essentially trained to be an NHS dentist, a government dentist, and it was that underlying current that to go into private dentistry was a bad thing, that because private dentists were perhaps greedy or unethical, which is ludicrous, and it was never said out loud, but the undertones were there that dentistry is not about money, and if you want to make money out of it, then maybe you're on this kind of dark side or dark path. And that's hard, because you have 5 years of that, and it messes with you. But other countries may have different experiences, because here in New Zealand you come straight out and you go into private dentistry. So I don't know whether those conversations are different here. I would hope they are, but talking to recent graduates, it doesn't seem like the conversation's happening at all. So we do have some work to do on kind of where we fit into that and what our money script is. Not because we necessarily have to change it, but I think it's really important to recognise the influence that is going to have with the ease that you talk about money and sales and costs and fees with your patients, and how you cultivate your practice to talk about it, because it's not just you that's talking about money in the practice. You know, you're the moment you leave the nurse in the room with the patient's asking the nurse about how much is this going to cost, what does this typically cost. Your receptionist is getting this on the phone with cold inquiries, they're getting it at the reception desk when patients come in, and they're getting it when paying. So they're getting all sorts of kind of interesting interactions, and if you, as a practice, can develop a culture or at least an understanding about how everybody is doing this, conducting it and talking it, so it doesn't have a feeling to your patients like money is a dirty word and we don't want to talk about it. We just kind of show you the money on the FPOS screen or switch or credit card or whatever electronic money taking, card taking device you have in your country. But yeah, it's a practice-wide conversation. But in terms of kind of looking at it yourself, the questions you need to ask yourself are, I mean, how do you feel about your debt? So unfortunately, now we've got dentists coming out with huge amounts of debt. I was fortunate enough that wasn't me. But the number of posts I see about stress and burnout and people wanting to leave the profession really early, but they're actually swamped in debt that they can't pay off in any other job very easily or very quickly. But how do you feel about your income? What do you think about the money you get, about the savings you've got, the assets you've got? How do you think about people who owe you money? And that's kind of a biggie, because people who agree to treatment and aren't paying are people that owe you money. And quite often we still have to see those people down the track, and it's worth exploring. Well, how do you feel about when you pay for expenses and outings, when you do your grocery shopping, when you shop for gifts, when you shop for clothes, and when you shop for kind of collectible items? Because does any of this bring up negative thoughts? Because some of those thoughts you might be passing on to kind of not your patients, but you're influencing the way that with which you're talking about money. Because if you're aware that they're going into debt for paying for treatment and you've got issues about your own debts, then the two things knock on. So to kind of go in and solve that for you all is a bit beyond the scope of this podcast, but it's certainly worth looking up, and there are resources out there to kind of uncovering your emotional relationship with money, how it's influencing you, and how it's influencing having those chats, and how to, with a view to getting around all those preconceptions, because we do have to earn money. Dentistry is a business. It's not a charity, and if you can't bring enough money into the practice that you can afford your own CPD and continuing development around your own lifestyle, that the practice can afford to keep up with equipment upgrades and things like that, then it's just going to be on a source of self-destruct. If you're not managing to charge adequately for your services, it's going to come as pressure from the practice, it's going to come as pressure from your personal income side of things, and it's going to come as pressure from patients, because they won't value what you don't value. And that will come back and bite you in terms of complaints later on. It can also come back in terms of you feeling like you've done someone an unsaid favour, and then when you're having to either repair it down the line or it turns into something bigger, resenting having done that when actually the patient didn't have a part of it, because it wasn't a conversation you had, it was a decision you made on your own thing count. But you know, I kind of want to say undercharging, overcharging, wombling free. It is a fine line, because you can turn around and say, well, I've got this, and I can justify charging this amount because I find it difficult and I'm going to take it this long to do it. But we do have like a specialist framework of fees, and I would be wary of venturing into that if you're not a specialist. Not necessarily because your work might be up to that, it might already be up to that standard, but in terms of complaints, failures and logistics, if it would have cost them less for you to have sent them to a specialist, it raises certain questions with the patient and with bodies looking into complaints. So it's hard because there's no real career progression or price progression. So it's not like this structure is set up that as a junior dentist you charge so much, and as a senior dentist you will be able to kind of charge more. You see it a little bit more in terms of contracts and percentages in commissions, with younger dentists being paid lower commissions because the practice feels that they will be the ones responsible for the longevity of that initial treatment when you don't have the experience to kind of back it, because we'll all have failures, we'll all have things that we've undercharged and we've overcharged, and we recognize kind of the problems they lead to. But you don't get that straight off. You just get that by time served and learning from your failures, learning from the failures of others, and trying not to judge failures that come across your surgery or path from other dentists that may have encountered issues that you've not been able to see. So it's not easy. We've got to get around these beliefs, ours and theirs. Here in New Zealand, dentistry is completely private, so there is no subsidy of healthcare for dentistry, yet there is in just about every other area. So they're comparing prices of seeing a doctor to prices of seeing us when they don't see the extra payments that the doctor will be getting for their services. It's hard to think about it, but if you can do the work and really face the uncomfortable conversations around this, you might actually be able to relax over money. You might be able to recognize and remove the emotion and anxiety you have around these conversations. Because quite often, the easy solution is to back down, make things cheaper, not offer the harder or more expensive treatments to try and make life easier. But the cost of not offering these treatments might be detrimental to your patients. You don't know. We've been taught that we have to problem solve. We take in all the information, we come back with a solution. But when it comes to finances, you need to work this out with your patient. It's such a crucial part of consent and communication. And I think I'm going to have to address this on another episode entirely and talk about patient-centred treatment planning. Now that might sound stupid because we will all be thinking, well, surely all of our treatment planning is patient-centred, but it's something I learnt through my nutrition and sports coaching, and something that I think will really add value to this and to how to put the whole of this piece together. But as I say, I think I'll come back to that on another time. If I was to kind of give a new graduate or someone new to private dentistry or having to charge for services some advice and some take-homes from this, it would be seek out a financial education, because most of us haven't had it. And depending on our parents, we may have been taught about money at home, but it may not have been a useful lesson to transfer to the rest of our lives. We don't get much in the way of education about money and finances at school, or certainly I didn't. In fact, I think the only thing was when one of the banks came in to open us all a bank account, and that was about it, talking about money, or talking about in early maths, I guess, working out what change you would get from a £5 note if you spent, bought 3 chocolate bars, 2 apples and a can of Coke. But yeah, seek a financial education, because we don't get it. It doesn't come at dental school. You need to learn about your finances in terms of your personal finance and looking after yourself. You need to learn about sales. It's not a dirty word. If someone feels they're being sold to, it's been done wrong. It should feel like you're consenting someone. and the decision is left with them, and that it shouldn't feel like a knock if they don't take it. It should feel like you've done your best to explain what treatment options are and in what circumstances they might work out for them, and the consequences, not just in terms of treatment complications, but financial outcomes that this may or may not have. But also business and finance to do with business, because even as an associate, you've got to manage your own money and your own taxes and your own finances, or certainly you do here. And just having a heads up about all of that stuff. Even as an associate, pay attention at work, what's going on. Have a think in terms of kind of what things cost, what it's costing to pay everyone else to be there, what it's costing to run the building, what it's costing to replace what your material costs are. And I'm not saying that you suddenly have to kind of budget strip and cut everything, but just having an appreciation for that might make you feel more comfortable about the prices you're talking about or being asked to talk about by the practice, because they will go a long way to explaining why they're set the way that they are. But yeah, in terms of young dentists going into practice, take guidance from your practice. They'll have fees set up. It's very disruptive to a practice, and patients don't understand if one dentist is charging one thing and others are charging something extremely different. If someone's discounting everything and the other dentist isn't discounting anything, but is actually kind of charging for extra things that the other dentist isn't, you just need to be on the same page, because, and this comes back to the communication we're talking about in the practice, if everyone's on the same page, it just sends a better message to our patients. Whereas if the default suspicion is that they're being done over and there's some kind of system that's not working, then that's what they'll take from those kind of discrepancies or kind of disharmonious attitudes to charging within the practice. Again, can make it difficult and kind of give you grief with complaints. But mentors are another way to go, is talk to your friends in other practices. What are they charging? How are they talking about it? Do they have any issues with it? I can remember talking to someone about being embarrassed about some of the prices and wanting to discount them down, and they looked at me like I'd got three heads. Like, why on earth would I discount any of the prices down? Surely it's just what it is and you charge what it is. But again, that goes back to probably my money scripts versus theirs. Very, very different. And don't worry if you don't get it right straight out of the gate. It's just like your clinical dentistry. You need time, you need to practice it, you need to get a feel for it. In the same way that you will probably find the stuff that you've done in greater volume at dental school will be easier to do when you leave dental school, and it's the stuff that you maybe haven't done a great amount of that requires working at it and pushing yourself into uncomfortable places to kind of get there. And those are the things that are normally the higher ticket treatment options. So again, it becomes twofold. You've got the lack of confidence clinically and the lack of confidence talking about the bigger amounts of money, but you'll get an increase in confidence in both. And when you start out and you might be embarrassed talking about $100 treatment option, that soon rolls into feeling more comfortable about $500, about $1,000, and on and up it goes, because you will gain more confidence in your ability, what it's worth, and what you see when you see how it lasts for people. So practice. The hardest thing is recognizing your own emotional involvement with money, trying to look for it in your patients and trying to remove your emotions from it, backing yourself and your skills and the experience you provide and bring to the appointment. So it's not easy, it's not talked about, but I guess we're making a start here. Love to hear your experiences or thoughts. As always, I'm on Twitter at Fang_Farrier. Join me for a conversation. Otherwise, we'll catch you next time. Cheers.